very important meeting. Lots of stuff happening right now and happening quickly, as we were told. But Father in heaven, we just ask you to be with us today. I ask that your words would be my words today, and that you would speak to the people through me, and that the people would hear your voice and see that your words are truth, and come to your word and say, wow, I believe you've told me these things before they come to pass, and I trust your word. I see the things that are coming to pass, and I know your word is truth. And I also know, Father, that you've given me prophecy so that I can take heed in these certain situations. And I pray, Father, that we understand the prophecies that we're going to learn today, so that it is understood that we can take heed, because some things are coming to pass right now that have been prophesied for many, many years. And I believe that you want us to have understanding in these things, as Jesus said, know therefore and understand when you see these things come to pass. And so, Father, I pray that we can have a mind like Christ, and that we can have the understanding that Christ would have us to have in this day, especially for friends and family, so that we can give a warning. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Yeah, because again, we're not here for prophesy. Prophesy is not just for us so that we can know the truth, right? Prophecy is given so that we can help people to understand the truth and come out of her, my people, as the message says in Revelation 18. But today's message is called Babylon's King of the North. And I'm going to say Babylon's King of the North because Babylon is the king of the north. We'll look at that in the Bible. And the CBDC, which is the central bank digital currency unicorn. We're going to look at this from the book of Daniel regarding the king of the north. We're going to look at some verses in Daniel, and you're going to see some things about the digital currency in there. And I'm going to kind of share the verses as to how they connect. But anyways, Daniel 11:40 tells us that at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come. And the words against him are added words. They're not really in that text. But the king of the north shall come like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships. So he's coming like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, and many ships, with armies. Remember what Jesus said? When you see the abomination spoken of by Daniel, know therefore and understand. Jesus also said this. He said, when you see armies surrounding Jerusalem, know and understand. Don't miss this point. Armies. Because armies are going to stand on the part of the king of the north. The king of the north is going to gather armies. Arms shall stand on his part, as we read in Daniel 11:31, and he shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. That's what it says in Daniel 11:31. So there's a connection to the church and state union, the army standing on its part, and the abomination that maketh desolate. And I will connect all this as we go today. But it says, he shall enter into country, shall overflow and pass over. Now, who is this king of the north? Well, Isaiah prophesied of it coming back in his day, and this is about 700 years BC, just before Babylon came. And he said that there was a nation coming whose arrows are sharp, he said, and all their bows bent. Their horses' hooves shall be counted like flint, and their wheels like a whirlwind. Their roaring shall be like a lion. They shall roar like young lions. Yea, they shall roar and lay hold of the prey. Now, what you see on the right is a picture of a lion, because a lion is a symbol of Babylon. Babylon was to come, and was to come like a whirlwind, and they were to come to destroy Jerusalem and take the city and burn it with fire. And we're going to continue here. You'll notice Jeremiah prophesied of this as well, where he said, set up the standard towards Zion. Retire, stay not, for I will bring evil from the north and a great destruction. Remember, we're talking about Daniel, king of the north. The lion is come up from his thicket, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. He is gone forth from his palace to make thy land desolate, and thy cities shall be laid waste without an inhabitant. Now, just give me 1 second here. I'm just shutting this down because it makes a lot of noise. But anyways, cities shall be laid waste without an inhabitant. Some of you might know that there is a depopulation program going on, and the Bible talks about these things. It tells you these things will come, that the cities will be laid waste. Cities are coming. Cities in modern day Babylon, because we read in the book of Revelation that there is a modern day Babylon. Babylon, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. We'll come to that as we continue. But anyways, behold, he shall come up, as this king of the north will come up as clouds, and his chariots shall be as a whirlwind. So he uses chariots as a whirlwind. He's coming to make war. His horses are swifter than eagles. Woe unto us, for we are spoiled. Now remember, Daniel said that the king of the north would come like a whirlwind with chariots, with horsemen, and also with many ships. Now I'm going to share with you what these ships are in a second, but the chariots, the horsemen, it's talking about gathering armies. It's talking about using these armies to make war on God's people. And I'm going to explain how this all applies to this modern day. The king of the north would come and he'd gather chariots, horsemen, ships, and he's going to make war against God's people. It says also in Daniel 11:43 that he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver. Well, who's going to have power over the economy in this last day? Who is it? It says in Revelation 13:17 that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And so there is going to be somebody who has power over the currencies, over the money systems. And we're going to look at this today, but this is the king of the north. This is Babylon. And I'll explain more as we continue today. Very important to understand these points. Now, this is just what happened in Australia this week. Major Australian bank to end cash withdrawals from some of its branches as the end of paper notes looms. So what does that mean if we're ending cash? That means in the end of paper notes. That means that we're going into a digital currency, a central bank digital currency, otherwise known as CBDCs. You hear that title a lot nowadays. CBDC, central bank digital currencies. See, this is what's happening. Even they're ending cash in places like Australia. Let me just play this video. Hopefully you guys can hear this.
We've taken another step towards a cashless society. A big bank has confirmed customers in some locations can no longer withdraw money over the counter as branches continue to wind back services.
It's up there with the pub with no beer, the bank with no cash. ANZ has confirmed some branches no longer handle cash at the counter. Others are directing customers to smart ATMs for cash transactions. ANZ says only 8% of its customers rely solely on branches. NAB says for its customers, it's only 3%. The number of bank branches nationally dropped 30% in major cities over 5 years, from more than 3,000 to around 2,300.
It's closed down about 12 months ago, so I've got to come down to South. And if that closes down, I don't know where I've got to go, so for checks and everything else.
It's a worldwide trend.
It's a worldwide trend. It's not just Australia. Caught that, right? So this is something that's come because in the EU, they're pushing the criminalization of physical cash with new anti-money laundering laws. So there's a lot of laws that are coming into place right now, and they want to criminalize physical cash. They don't want you to be using that. That's amazing, right? I mean, it might not be happening right where you are right now, but in certain places, it's going to be happening. They're pushing laws into place so that when this all comes to pass, that they will criminalize physical cash. Remember, we've already talked about this. This was last month. The Federal Reserve announces that it would launch a new FedNow service, which is a digital currency, in July. And so they're launching this, the Federal Reserve. But the Digital Currency Monetary Authority, the DCMA, unveils its white paper for an international central bank digital currency. And guess when this happened? 2 days ago, April 20th. Now, last week at the International Monetary Fund, IMF, I want you to remember this, the IMF Spring Meetings 2023, the Digital Currency Monetary Authority announced their official launch of Universal Monetary Unit. It's called Unicoin, an international central bank digital currency. So this is the latest in regards to the coming world currency. And you're going to see how this connects to Bible prophecy. I'm going to share with you a few things here in a second, but I want you just to catch this. It's coming from the IMF. Now, who is it that is calling for global COVID-19 recovery plan in a message to the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, the IMF? Pope Francis. Pope Francis is calling for this. Now, this is the leader of the IMF. She's also the chief, whatever, I can't remember what her title is, managing director, IMF managing director. And so Kristalina Georgieva says that there are new priorities for global economy. And I got this off the IMF website. And she is the IMF managing director, but she's on a workshop here on new forms of solidarity in Vatican City. She says, Holy Father, ministers, distinguished guests, I am truly honored to be here with you today. I would like to thank the Pontifical Academy of Social Services for inviting me to this important workshop. Now, here's the question. It says, what are the new priorities for the global economy? Let me give you the short answer. In the word of Pope Francis, the first task is to put the economy at the service of the people. Now, this is Kristalina Georgieva. She's the IMF managing director. And of course, the Pope is calling and giving a message. We need a recovery plan from the International Monetary Fund. And of course, just go back. Remember, they just released their digital unicoin. Okay, so you catching all that? Connect that all together now. We're moving to the next part. Now, central bank digital currencies for financial inclusion. Now, here again is the IMF chief, and she is talking about financial inclusion. Now, if there's financial inclusion, that must mean there's also going to be financial exclusion, right? That means that you may not be able to buy or sell unless, of course, you go along with what they want to give to you. You understand? There's going to be a new digital coin called the Unicoin. The IMF is bringing it out. The Pope is calling for the IMF to bring it out. And there's going to be financial inclusion and financial exclusion. Just as the Bible said, no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name or the number of the beast. God has already given us this prophecy. Now we're watching it all unfold before our eyes. And some people are still waiting afar off, waiting for some other king of the north to come. But this is the king of the north, the papacy. And I'll share with you more as we continue. But listen to this. I want you to hear this.
Information provision that covers for people how not using cash is better to protect yourself against crime, and how if you use digital money, you can graduate from payments to credit. And that, of course, enhances financial inclusion. Financial inclusion.
So the more that you do with them, the more inclusive they become with you. And, we'll make it so that there's financial inclusion. That means there's going to be financial exclusion, as the Bible said again, right? And this is not just having to do with any kind of cash system. It's a cashless system. It is a digital system that they're bringing to pass. Control. Again, I want you to hear what she says with respect to this, though, and how it connects to the book of Daniel, chapter 11. Okay, and watch this as we look again.
Bear with me on giving you an image and then outlining 3 priorities for CBDCs to help. Here is the image.
Here's the image.
We have been talking this last couple of days of the difficult time we are in, that our world economy is like a ship in choppy waters.
A ship in choppy waters.
The image we can add to it is thinking of CBDCs as being a new fleet of ships.
Wow. Okay, let me just stop you there. Okay, so what is the economy right now? It's a ship in choppy waters. What is the CBDC? A new fleet of ships. Okay, let me just give you a little picture here. Okay, just so you get the idea. Oh, my picture's not there. Wow. Okay, but I was going to show you a fleet of ships. But anyway, I will show you one here in a second. But basically, a fleet of ships. Where do we read about a fleet of ships? And there should be the verses there. For some reason, I messed up my slides. But again, Pope calls for transformation of the economy for the common good. Okay, that's what it's for, the common good. And the Pope wants this in rebuild in the new coronavirus world. He calls on the IMF to do this, and it's a digital economy for the common good. Now, here's my fleet of ships that I was going to show you. And the reason that I want to show you this is because when you think of a fleet of ships, you can think of armies. Arms shall stand on his part. Let me go to the book of Daniel for 1 second, just to kind of explain this a little bit. In the book of Daniel, it says that he shall come like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships. Okay. And then, of course, verse 43 says he shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver. So what is this digital economy coming like? A fleet of ships. What's it going to control? It's going to control the gold or silver, the precious things of Egypt. Who might buy or who might sell? That's what this is. But I want to go back a few verses. To verse 31, I want you to keep this in mind. It says, arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength. They shall take away the daily and place the abomination that maketh desolate. Now, I could share with you all these points and what they mean, but I want you to focus on this point here. Armies will stand on his part, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. There's a connection here. Okay, if you go to Daniel chapter 8, let's just go to Daniel 8 and take a look at Daniel 8 and verse 12. It says a host, which means an army, was given to him against the daily by reason of transgression. And this transgression, if you look carefully, is called the transgression of desolation. Now, it's also the abomination of desolation. So reason of the abomination, which is to have this host stand on his side. Now, in Revelation chapter 17, when we're speaking about Babylon, which is the papacy, it says that this woman has in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Who does she fornicate with that causes these abominations? It would be in verse 2 that she's committed fornication with the kings of the earth. And in verse 5, she's called the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. But Jesus said, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, know therefore and understand. You see, this woman has so many abominations, but there's finally one abomination that makes her desolate. And that is mentioned in verse 16, same chapter, where it says that the 10 horns which you see upon the beast shall hate the whore and shall make her desolate. And what are these 10 horns that make her desolate? Well, they're armies. Arms stand on her part, and they place the abomination to make it desolate. See, the armies are the ones that get control over the state, and then they force on the people doctrines and beliefs and things that are contrary to people's faith, to the point where they are told to bow down to this great image that they set up, or else be thrown into this fiery furnace, very similar to ancient Babylon. But here we have modern day Babylon. The 10 kings, which you see, they have no kingdom yet. These are the 10 horns, but these have one mind. They're unified. Unicoin, unified, united nations, united kings. And I'm going to come back to this as we continue, but I want you to keep this all in mind, because it's going to have power over the gold and the silver. And this is a symbol to us. It's a symbol. Ships are coming. Ships control the economy. If you read in the book of Revelation chapter 18, you can see that there's ships. He had power over the ships. Let's go look at it a little bit just quickly before I go back to my presentation here. But the kings of the earth committed fornication with her. They see the smoke of her burning. I'll come to this point. I'm going to share with you a lot in regards to this today. But that great city, that mighty city, for the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her. Merchants means people who buy, people who sell, merchants, right? And no man can buy her merchandise anymore. Certainly no man's going to be able to buy except he that has the mark of the beast. But anyways, the merchandise is gold, silver, precious stones. Who's going to have power over the gold, silver again? The king of the north, which is Babylon. And it says that it'll have all this stuff: cinnamon, odors, frankincense, wine, oil. I could go over these things. They're all symbols of many things that God has. But it says the merchants of these things were made rich by her, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. But it says, in 1 hour, so great riches has come to nothing. And every shipmaster, what is it connecting the ships with here, guys? Every shipmaster and the company in ships and sailors, and as many as that trade by the sea, stood afar off. What does it mean to trade? It means to buy or sell. That's what trading means. You trade, you buy or sell. So what do the ships have to do with the many ships that are here, that are come to naught? In 1 hour, so great riches is come to nothing. And the shipmasters and ship people stood afar off. It's the economy. The economy. So when this woman, which we just saw in a video, said that this digital currency is coming like a fleet of ships, what is it that we're looking at right here? Is a new economic system, and it's a system of financial inclusion and financial exclusion, just as the Bible predicted that no man will be able to buy or sell, save he that has the mark or the name or the number of his name. So you guys connecting all this together today. This is important for us to connect together, because I got a lot more for us to connect here. But it says again in Daniel 11:40 that at the time of the end, the king of the south would push at him, and the king of the north shall come like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter in a country, shall overflow and pass over. And he shall have power over the treasures of gold and the treasures of silver, that the ships may not be able to trade anymore, buy or sell, that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. This all connects to our last day prophecy. It's all connecting together. If you know who the king of the north is, if you know that Babylon is the king of the north, that's who the king of the north is. Now let's keep going here. The surest way to destroy a nation is to debauch its currency. That's Vladimir Lenin, who was a disciple of Karl Marx. So how do they destroy the United States? They want to bring it down. A lot of these people realize the Constitution stands in their way of being able to do a lot of things to control, like communist dictators. So in order to bring it down, debauch its currency. They knew how to do this. But I want you to look at a nation that was destroyed of old, and that is the nation of Jerusalem. And there's some interesting things regarding the currency of Jerusalem at this time. But Jesus, when he talked about the sign of the end, he likens it to what happened to Jerusalem in 70 AD when it was burnt with fire. I'd like to connect you to a couple things here with regards of burning it with fire. But in the book of Luke, chapter 19, it says, when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, if thou hadst known. So Jesus said, when it comes to pass, you better know and you better understand. And you know what a lot of people say? It doesn't matter what's coming to pass in this city right now. We're going to be fine in the cities. We just have to have Jesus. As long as we have Jesus and we're in these cities, we're fine. You know what a lot of people were saying in the days when Jerusalem was burnt with fire? They're saying, as long as we have Jesus, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. No need to worry. We'll be fine. We don't need to come out. We don't need to flee out of the midst. I'm going to read to you the Bible, though, because Jesus said, if you had known. And he said, but what was wrong? We're told that they knew not the time of their visitation. Luke 19:41-44. Jesus gave us many warnings. He told us, likewise, when you see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door. Don't misunderstand. Remember when the flood came and they knew not? They knew not. They didn't understand the hour of their visitation. They didn't know what was coming, and destruction came upon them, and they were all swept away and taken away. That's Matthew 24, same chapter. But we're told by historians that before the destruction of Jerusalem took place, that a sign was given to the early Christians to get out of the city. In 67 AD, they were told, flee out of the midst of Judea. There was a sign given. Ellen White writes about this in The Great Controversy, where she said, when the idolatrous standards of the Romans should be set up in the holy ground, which extended some furlongs outside the city walls, then the followers of Christ were to find safety in flight. When the warning sign should be seen, those who would make escape must make no delay. Great Controversy, page 26. So they put up their flag and they said, this is our country now. The Romans are taking over and we're going to rule. And then they backed off and they gave 3.5 years of time for the people to get out of the city. That was the sign to get out of the city. And there was time for people to flee out of the city. But you know what a lot of people did? They came out and then they went back to sea and they said, oh no, everything's fine. We're good. We're okay. I'm going to share with you the sign right now, because God has given you a sign on the Day of Atonement. September 24th, 2015, the papacy came to the United States and was in the Congress of the United States. On September 25th, 2015, the Pope was in the United Nations. A lot of people, when they saw it coming, they're like, whoa, man, the Romans are coming. They're getting power over the state. They're going to control the state. They're fornicating with the kings of the earth. Now, let me break this down so that you can understand it. I'm going to go to my Bible here. In the book of Matthew, chapter 24, Jesus warns us. Let's go to the book of Matthew, Matthew 24. And verse 2, Jesus said to them, well, they were asked something first. The disciples came to him saying, show us something. And they wanted to understand. And Jesus said, you're going to see that every stone on this city is going to be thrown down. But the disciples asked him, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world? Now the sign, remember, the sign was given to get out of the city. And so there's a sign. What was the sign that you would see and know that you would have to flee out of Jerusalem? What was the sign? Well, he said, take heed that no man deceives you. Many are going to come in my name. They're going to deceive many. There's going to be false Christ, people impersonating Christ, people coming in my name, nation rising against nation, famines, pestilence, earthquakes. All these are the beginning of sorrows, but the end is not yet, right? The end is not yet. That's not the sign of the end. Don't misunderstand. They'll deliver you. They'll try to kill you. Many false prophets will arise and deceive many. And then he says, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in the world, and all nations will hear it. And then shall the end come. The sign of the end. And then he gives you the sign. He says, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. If we understand the sanctuary message, we understand where the holy place is. We understand where it is. Where is Jesus standing right now? In the holy place. Where does he want you to stand with him? In the holy place. But where does the devil want to put his mark? In that holy place, right here, in the heart. But Jesus is supposed to stand there, right? We're supposed to let him understand, but it says, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is in the housetop not come down and take anything. And then it says, pray that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be a time of trouble, such as never was, since there was a time, since the beginning of the world, this time no nor ever shall be. Where do we connect this verse to? Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. You can go to Daniel 12 and verse 1, where it says, at that time shall Michael stand up. Stand with him. What's that mean? The great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. You want to take a stand? Stand in the holy place. And there shall be a time of trouble, troublous time, such as never was, just as Matthew 24:21 says, since there was a nation, even in that same time, and at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. But just before this, at this time, what time? What happens in the previous chapter? It's right here. It's right here, down in verse 40, where it says, the king of the north shall come like a whirlwind with chariots, horsemen, and ships. He shall do all this, enter in the cities, come into the cities. He shall have power over the treasure of gold and silver, but tidings out of the east. And what does Matthew 24 say? As lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even out of the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And tidings out of the east, that's the gospel. Tidings, news, the good news. This gospel shall be preached in all nations for a light. But it says that tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. And he shall go forth with great fury to destroy, to utterly make away many. And he shall plant the tabernacle of his palace between the seas in the glorious and holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. Who is this that it's talking about here? That's going to plant his tabernacles in the sides of the north. Who is it? Let's go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And what does it say? Let no man deceive you by any means, except there will come a falling away first, and that man of sin shall be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This is the man of sin. This is the papacy. This is the Pope. That's who it's referring to, the king of the north. Now, September 24th, 2015 was the Day of Atonement. The Pope was in Congress. Now, let me just bring you back again to the scriptures. In Revelation chapter 17 and verse 1, it says that there comes one of the seven angels talked with me, saying, I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters. Now, why is she judged? Why is she judged? It says in verse 2, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. Church and state. There's a judgment for church and state. Now, you just put those two verses together. I will show you the judgment. Do you know what the Day of Atonement is? It is a day of judgment. It is the day that Christ went into the most holy place, and the judge, the Father, sits upon the throne, and Christ goes into the most holy place. That's Judgment Day. And it was the Day of Atonement that the Pope came into Congress of the United States and sat in a place where the heart of God should be, the heart of the nation. That's where God should sit, is in the hearts of these men. And the Pope instead was in the place where he ought not to be, because they should be upholding the Constitution, these men. These men were to uphold the Constitution, which said there should be no law made with respect to religion. And who's in there speaking? A religious leader. The religious leader that men like James Madison said, we want nothing to do with. James Madison, the writer of the Constitution, said that to keep the shores of America from having the blood that was spilt on it, on Europe in the Dark Ages, that's why the First Amendment was in the Constitution, to keep church and state separated. And that Constitution is to be upheld by the Congress of the United States. But on September 24th, 2015, instead of upholding the Constitution, these men of Congress invited the papacy, the Pope, to speak in their halls and to tell us that their deadly wound was healed. And on September 25th, 2015, the Pope was in the United Nations. You know what else happened on that day? Was that the Vatican flag was raised at the United Nations. There was a sign given to God's people. Because when you see this sign, when you see the church and state coming together like this, union of church and state, there's a call for God's people. Let's go to Revelation chapter 18 and verse 2. It says that Babylon is fornicating with the kings of the earth, as it says in verse 3, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. And it says, when you see this, come out of her, my people. It's like when you see it surrounding Jerusalem in ancient times, 67 AD, flee out of the midst of Judea. So too, when you see this sign, come out of her, my people. When you see it sitting in Congress of the United States, come out of her, my people. When you see it sitting with the United Nations, come out of her, my people. Now, does this just mean come out of the fallen churches? Well, definitely you should not be in these churches and worshiping with them. You should not be in Babylon going to church. But not just that, it's deeper than that. It's not just a message to come out of the fallen churches. It's a message to come out of the cities. And I'm going to share with you a little bit more as we continue. But remember, the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings. That's the United Nations. And the 10 horns, the union of church and state with the United Nations, is an abomination of her fornication that makes her desolate. And what happens after this abomination to make it desolate? She shall be burnt with fire. Come out of her, my people. She's about to be burnt with fire. Flee out of Judea, because Judea and the temple was burnt with fire. You see, there's a judgment that's given for fornication with the kings of the earth, burnt with fire. Now, on September 23rd, 24th, the Pope was in Congress. September 25th, the Pope is in New York addressing the United Nations. And then, of course, they're bringing in a system of sun worship, sun god worship, COP27, climate agenda. All this stuff connects to what happened. Pope Francis invites Christians to a month of ecological conversion. It's a religion forced on the people. Our sin of emissions, 10+1 climate commandments, Sunday keeping, all this other stuff into the cities. And they call this sustainable development agenda, the Agenda 2023, adopted by world leaders in September 2015 at the historic UN summit when Pope Francis was in Congress and in New York City. That came into force. I want to share with you something about this 2030 agenda here. It's called the Agenda for Sustainable Development. And here's a map which has to do with protecting biodiversity, a UN map, and a vital step, they say, in attaining sustainable development, as you read on the map. Remember, Sustainable Development Agenda. And they have the United States mapped out here. They have yellow and red zones. The red zones where it says core reserves and corridors, little to no human use. The yellow zones will be buffer zones where highly regulated use. You can see all the rivers and lakes. They want to keep people away from these areas and move them into cities, into the cities. God has a call. It's come out of the cities, come out over my people. But Babylon has a call as well. And they want to move people into the cities. It's the opposite. It's the opposite message. The opposite message. But when he came on September 25th to the United States and come together with the kings of the earth, it says that they were preparing for Pope Francis' whirlwind visit to New York City. He came like a whirlwind to gather armies, to gather ships, chariots, horsemen, right? That's what Daniel 11:40 says. He came like a whirlwind. And you can see when he came to New York to gather the armies, the ships, the chariots, the horsemen, that he came like a whirlwind New York visit, according to the Catholic New York. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette says the East Coast prepares for the whirlwind visit from Pope Francis. The CBS News Network says Pope's whirlwind New York tour down here on the left corner. That's what the title of this video is called, Pope's whirlwind New York tour. This one here, the Telegraph, if you read down below, Pope Francis spent a whirlwind U.S. visit bringing the realms of disadvantaged and elite. So he wanted to bring us together, apparently. Eyewitness News 7 says Pope Francis' whirlwind visit to disrupt transportation and business when he came to the United States of America. It was a whirlwind trip. Pope Francis makes a big impression in whirlwind visit of New York City. That's Access WDUN News. The New York Times says the highlights of Pope Francis' visit to the United States. It calls it a whirlwind papal journey, concludes. He shall come like a whirlwind. Is this biblical? This is biblical. This is to do with the trip to gather armies. When arms shall stand on his part. When you see the abomination and make it desolate, the armies, the 10 horns, shall make her desolate. Pope Francis' whirlwind New York tour comes to an end. You think we might have missed the sign? The sign was given. Jesus said, when you see this sign, know and understand and come out of the cities. You know why? Because they're going to control the economy. And that's what's coming out of this is the WEF. Well, IMF, we've already looked at it. The WEF, the World Economic Forum, all these people coming together. Pope Francis begins a 39-hour whirlwind visit to New York City. WNYC News. Reuters. Pope leaves New York City in a whirlwind of events. His whirlwind trip, right? Fox 6, whirlwind trip. Pope Francis back in Rome. Catholic News USA, Pope Francis' first whirlwind day in U.S. focused on climate change and reconciliation, the climate agenda. USA Today, Pope Francis is tired after whirlwind, limping a bit, but doing fine. Concludes his whirlwind trip. The Wall Street Journal, for Pope Francis, a whirlwind tour of New York City winds down at Madison Square Gardens. Are you guys catching the terms that are used here? Do you think that God might not have wanted us to miss this point that Daniel spoke of? The abomination of desolation that Daniel spoke of? The point of the union of church and state that we were to see. And it happened on the very day of atonement, his own day of judgment. I will show you the judgment of the great whore who is fornicating with the kings of the earth. Can you see it? It's right before our eyes. It is a judgment. She is the mother of abominations, and the 10 horns, the United Nations, are in her fornication with them is an abomination that makes her desolate. Don't miss it. Jesus said, don't miss it. It's right here, as spoken of by Daniel. The whirlwind trip, the 10 horns make her desolate. Church and state, woman and a beast, church and state. It's a prophecy. It's an abomination. This mother of abominations, the 10 regions of the world, the 10 horns, the 10 United Nations Millennium Development Goals, 10 10 nations divided here. COP 15, let's just explain a little bit more, because they want to militarize 30% of the earth, 30%. And I didn't get the Pope speaking about this, but he wants 30% of the United States to be off limit to humans, 30% of the world to be protected. So the trees are protected, the birds are protected, because it's an environmental agenda. COP 15. Not just that, we showed the symbol of COP 15. It was Aten, the sun god, sun worship, and the 10 commandments plus one. Multi-faith community is mobilizing to preserve creation. Biodiversity summit. What was this map about here? What was this map we just looked at with regards to the United States? I'm going to go back here just so you got it in your mind. When we look at this map, this is a map that is to protect biodiversity. COP 15, Biodiversity Summit. Sun worship. See the connections here. That's what they're protecting, 30% of the land in that map. And it's all about protecting biodiversity, 30 times 30. Militarized protected areas. Military. There's going to be military out on the outskirts of the cities. And they're going to keep you in the cities, and you're going to be locked in to the cities. Very similar to what happened in ancient Jerusalem in 67 AD, 70 AD. They locked down the city. The people were locked in. They couldn't get food. They couldn't get out of the city. The gates were shut. And they were eating their own children. They were eating mice and rats and all kinds of stuff to survive. And that's what happened in 70 AD. Do you think that maybe God has given that us as a sign of the end, as something that points us to the end time, to understand, so that when you see it, know and understand it, so that you make sure that you're free from what is about to come to pass? Because what kind of cities are these that they want? Well, World Economic Forum is leading a G20 Smart Cities Alliance. And I know smart does not mean they're very smart. It's about monitoring, surveillance, monitoring cities. That's what they are. SM, surveillance, monitoring, and something else, ART. I can't remember all the codes, but they're monitor cities so that they control who might buy, who might sell. You're going to have a digital economy. Make sure you're up to date on your shots, because if you are not, you're not going to be able to buy. You're not going to be able to sell. You know, all this other stuff, Babylon's pharmakeia system, it's all there. Cities race to zero. Unprecedented coalition of cities committed to setting science-based targets, start implementing inclusive and resilient climate action ahead of and beyond the 2021 climate change conference in Glasgow. And remember, it's an inclusive monetary system that has just been released by the IMF. And so they're going to control who might buy or sell. And how long and how far away is this, guys? Are you guys all waiting for like Jesus to or for Satan to personate Christ and all this other stuff? Are you guys still waiting and thinking that there's a bunch of prophecies still to be fulfilled? Do you think that there's still more, or is it possible it's already happening right before your eyes and you're just missing it? Is it possible that maybe you're not seeing, knowing, and understanding the events and the signs of the times that Jesus already gave you? And he's already told you. Is it possible that we're missing out on the sign that Jesus said, know therefore and understand? Is it possible that he wanted you to come out of her, my people, to realize and discern, so that you could raise your kids up in the south, and that you could eat your own food, so that you're not going to be fed crickets and other bugs and dirty foods and other things like that, that you could raise your own provisions? See, these cities are about to be burnt with fire. Babylon is to be burnt with fire. 10 horns make her desolate. And the Bible says and tells us why it will be burnt with fire and why these cities are about to be burnt with fire. There's not going to be food in these cities real soon. They're going to go crazy. And you know what they do when they go crazy? They burn everything down. Has anybody ever seen Black Lives Matters and the protesters? They're nuts. Instead of building things up, they burn things down. I don't know if they call that Build Back Better. Joe Biden, BBB 666, right? But this is a sign to us We see these signs. And what's happening here? I have a stop sign. Imagine you go through a stop sign, you miss the sign, right? It's an accident waiting to happen. You miss the sign, you could be in serious trouble. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached. The end is come. But when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. It's all here before us. I'm just going to make you know, this is what Ezekiel said. Son of man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations. Jesus said, know, understand, right? So here's how you know your abominations, okay? Thou didst trust in thine own beauty, and thou playedest the harlot, fornication with the kings of the earth, right? And poured out thy fornications on everyone that passed by. This fornication with the kings of the earth is an abomination. And I'm causing you to know an abomination. But this abomination, the 10 horns, is so abominable, as I said, that the 10 horns and her fornication with these kings of the earth, the United Nations, is an abomination that shall make her desolate. The 10 horns make her desolate. We just got to take the veil off and we got to see the sign. Sign is already before us. It's already come. It's already passed. And God has already given us a message. Come out over my people, the loud cry. It's been going forth. And how many people are saying, no, we got to wait till Turkey enters into Jerusalem below, as if that's the sign. No, armies are surrounding Jerusalem already. You are Jerusalem, the church of the firstborn, which is written in heaven, as it says in Hebrews chapter 12. She is the mother of us all. We are the remnant of her seed. She's in Revelation chapter 12, and the dragon is gathering around her, and he's got armies, the 10 horns on that dragon, making war with the remnant seed of God. Jerusalem is being surrounded by armies right now. And you know who's sitting in the holy place where Jesus is supposed to be sitting? Is that Pope has come. He's sitting in the heart of the nation, Washington, D.C., and he's promoting these doctrines, fornicating with the kings of the earth. And we can't see the sign. Babylon is falling, guys. Come out of her, my people. Flee out of Judea, flee out of Babylon, come out of the cities before it's too late. God has spoken. And what are we waiting for? But on the Jewish Day of Atonement, Judgment Day of all days, that the Pope was in Congress, we missed it, right? Pope was in the United Nations, and he's trying to execute this 10-horn beast. God has shown us the judgment. Let me keep going here. I want to go down a little bit. A couple of things. Leviticus 18:22 says this: thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is an abomination. We see this being forced in the cities, left, right, center, backwards, everywhere. Trans day, trans this, trans that, trans everything. It's being forced on the people. And then the kids, little kids, being taught this and being told, oh, you know what, just don't tell your parents about it. We're going to take you and get you some surgery, you know? Wow, that's cutting off their genitalia. This is an abomination. It is abominable. And it's just gotten worse and worse, to the point where, as it says, neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself therewith. Neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie down there too. It is confusion. A woman and a beast is confusion. And that's what it is. Babylon. And it is an abomination. It's an abomination because when you think about abominations, there's an abomination again. This 10 horns, church and state union, is an abomination that maketh desolate. Confusion. 10 horns. And the term there for confusion comes from the root word Babel, which is used in Genesis chapter 11. But Leviticus 21, talking about this woman, she's going to be burnt with fire, and Babylon is going to be burnt with fire because of the 10 horns. But it says, Leviticus 21:9, that the daughter of any priest, if she profane herself by playing the whore, as Revelation 17 tells us about, she profaneth her father, and she shall be burnt with fire. This is the judgment of playing the whore. That's why Jerusalem was burnt in 70 AD. They said, we have no king but Caesar. And that's why the churches today are going to be burnt, because they're going to say, well, we trust in Donald Trump. We trust in the kings of the earth. We go to the world and we trust in the leaders of the world, the United Nations, or whatever it is. And by putting your trust in men, as it says, let me go to the Bible. I'm going to share with you from the Bible, Isaiah chapter 30. Isaiah 30. Let's go to it. 30 verse 1. Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord. And why? Because they take counsel, but not of me. That cover with a covering. Oh, yes, if we can get Donald Trump into power, we can be happy, but not by my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. That walk to go down into Egypt, that go to the kings of the earth, that go to these men and have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh or of whatever king you want to put there. Put your president there. Put whatever president you want to put your trust in, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, or the strength of Donald Trump, or the strength of Rick Santos, whoever. I know I can't remember all their names, but let's just say the trust in the shadow of Egypt will be your confusion. Remember the woman, the beast, Leviticus 18, that a woman and a beast, confusion, Babylon, right? Same thing. Chapter 31, woe to them that go down to Egypt for help and stay on horses, trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong. But they look not on the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. I can tell you right now, and I just shared with ChatGPT and the AI and other stuff like that, but there's going to be AI robots that are going to be monitoring everything. There's going to be AI robots like dogs and all kinds of things. And they're going to have guns on them. And some of you have seen the videos where they come like an army. But listen, you know what? It's going to look like you're surrounded. You're going to look back and you're going to see Pharaoh's armies coming over the hill, and you're going to see a Red Sea in front of you. And you're going to say, this is impossible to cross, God. This is impossible to cross. But if we call upon the name of the Lord, he will open the Red Sea. He will move the waters from the left to the right so that God's people can cross over to the promised land. And God's people need to put their confidence not in the kings of the earth, not in the things of this world, not in Pharaoh's armies, not in Donald Trump, not in anything in this world. But I'm telling you right now, as the armies are surrounding God's people, Jerusalem, the church of the firstborn, we need to put our confidence in Jesus Christ as our deliverer. And that's it. That's the only way that we can overcome in this world, whether it's sin or whether it's anything in this world. We can trust in him, and he will set us free. And he will bring us to the land of freedom, Jerusalem, which is above, which is free. And that's what he wants. He wants to set us free from the bondage of this world. But again, this is what's coming. Do not miss these signs. Jesus gives you prophecy so that you can take heed. And he's warned you. Understand, see, know, don't miss. That's what Jesus said. These kings have one mind. They give their power and strength unto the beast. Same mind, United Nations, right? They're all of one mind. They're united. United kings, United Nations. But this is what he says. When he was come near, he beheld the city, he wept over it, saying, if thou had known. I want to connect this to the Bible again. Revelation chapter 18. What does it say here regarding weeping? It says that there's another angel coming down from heaven right now, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And I want to tell you what he does. He cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen. Know therefore and understand. Because look at what it says here. Jesus talking, he said, if you had known. And what's the problem with the people right now? They can't even discern. Babylon is fallen. And so we're crying mightily with a loud voice saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and become a habitation of devils. You know, ChatGPT, you guys go watch that video right now, guys. And the hold of every foul spirit and the cage of every unclean, hateful bird. If you haven't seen that, you need to see it. But all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication. The merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, flee out of the midst of Babylon. Come out of her, my people. Come out of Judea. Come out of whatever. You see the sign before you understand. 10 horns make her desolate. Fornication with the kings of the earth. Come out of her. When you see this, know, understand, do not miss, because the plagues are about to fall. Her sins have reached unto heaven. But you know what a lot of people are saying? Oh no, this prophecy has to come. This still has to be done. Oh, we're waiting for this. We're waiting for that. We're waiting for all these other prophecies to come. And I'm telling you right now, they're about to implement a central bank digital currency. We're about to see destruction fall on cities. We're about to see all kinds of stuff. And I know that God has been merciful. He's been holding it off and giving his people time. What a great God we have. Just put your trust in him right now. And God willing, there will be some little time that he can give you to do what he's called you to do and walk in the light that he's called you to walk in. Look, again, I want to go back to my Bible here to the book of Joel chapter 2. Joel chapter 2. And it talks about the king of the north in this chapter. You'll notice in verse 23 or 20, I will remove far off from you the northern army. I'll drive him into a land that's barren and desolate, with his face toward the east sea and his hinder part toward the utmost sea. I can hold him off. And trust me, I can clear up the waters. God can do these things. He will do these things. But what is he calling for here, guys? Let's go down a little bit. And what does he say? Verse 12, he says, now, saith Jehovah, turn ye even to me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning. Cry with a loud voice. And cry. Don't be shy to say, it's called the loud cry. Come out over my people. It's not called the silent whisper. It's called the loud cry. Babylon is fallen. Don't be shy about it. This is our message. I know I share about Babylon quite often. I share messages that come in different ways, different areas, but it's just all the points. You can put them all together if you go through my messages, and you become stronger in those things. But it says, rend your heart, not your garments. Turn to the Lord your God, for he's gracious and merciful, slow to anger, great kindness, and repent them of evil. So we have to turn to God and weep, just like Jesus when he looked at the city and he said, oh, if you had known in what hour your judgment is coming. And we look at what's about to happen here, and we should be crying out, oh, if they had only known what's about to come on the cities. And that goes for the churches right now and all these. I can tell you most of Adventism, if you want to talk about people who are supposed to be the people of the book that know the prophecies, oh, if you had only known. That's what God is saying right now. And he's weeping for you. He's crying for you. And he's saying, oh, if you had just known and understood. Know, therefore, and understand when you see this sign given you. How many of God's people, professed people, are in the cities right now? How many of God's professed people are going to receive of the plagues because they failed to hear the warning, because they were putting it afar off, because they were saying the king of the north is Turkey, because they were saying that this still had to happen and that still had to happen before these prophecies could be fulfilled? How many people have missed out and are going to miss out and going to think, oh, I'm walking in the light? But the reality is they were deceived, and many of them were not just deceived, but they were deceiving others. And I know I've shared a lot of these things before. So there's a lot of points I could go on, and I could expound on everything that I'm sharing, because truth, when you have truth expounds on itself. It just gets wider and bigger and more. And there's so much more I could say about this stuff. And I could just keep on going and share with these things. But I don't want to just overload you guys. I want to give you a little bit. You got the point here. I hope with regards to the IMF, you understand that this economy is coming. They are getting rid of and scrapping paper money. They're about to scrap it, and they're about to bring in this digital system. And God has a warning to his people. He's calling his people out, and God is able to hold back the winds so that he can call his people out. But we got to get out there and give the loud cry. As God's people, we should not be silent about these things right now. We should not just be trying to save ourselves. That's not what I want anybody who's hearing this message to be doing. God forbid. We're not here to save ourselves, because we have one Savior, and it's God. And some people are going to ask me, how do I do it? This is what you do. You go to God and you just say, God, what would you have me to do? And you serve everybody around you, and God will just open doors, because that's what you're here as. You are the church, and you are here to serve. And when you serve, you'll see the doors just open. Oh, here, do you need a bed to sleep on? Here you go. That's the way that God works. But as much as you do it unto him, he will do it unto you. You know, when you see somebody on the street who needs food, or you see somebody just needing a place to stay or whatever, look at Isaiah 58. Okay. You know what? It talks about keeping the Sabbath because we're all worried about coming to church on Saturday, but it's more than that. It's deeper than that. I know I'm talking straight because it's just like we miss so much. Isaiah 58. Behold, ye fast for strife and debate, and to smite with the fist of wickedness. You shall not fast as you do this day, to make your voice to be heard on high. It is such a fast that I have chosen. This is the type of fast that I've chosen. A day for a man to afflict his soul, and to bow his head down as a bulrush, and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him. Wilt thou that call this a fast, an acceptable day to the Lord? Is not this the fast that I have chosen? Now, this is all speaking about the Day of Atonement. I'll have you know the Sabbath involves more than just the weekly Sabbath, but it says to loose the bands of wickedness, to undo heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free, that you break every yoke. Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out to thy house? Some of us can bring the poor into our houses, okay, and help them out of the cities. Some of us can do that, right? When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh. Just look at that person as your own flesh, and just remember that that person, don't just hide yourself and say, okay, I'm safe, I'm fine, I'm good. But say, look, put yourself in their shoes and say, that's me. And that's where I am. I'm out on the street right now. God forbid. Right? What does it say? When you bring them into your own house, the poor in your own house, then shall thy light break forth as the morning, and thine health shall spring forth speedily, and thy righteousness shall go before thee, and the glory of the Lord shall be thy rearward. Then shalt thou call, and the Lord shall answer. Thou shalt cry, and he shall hear, saying, here am I. Yeah. Because you know what, God, we see the armies that are surrounding us right now. We need you, Lord. I mean, there's a sea in front of us that's filled with water, and we need you to spread the sea. We just can't do it ourselves. We know that it's your power that delivered us out of Egypt, and we know that it's your power that delivers us today. And we seek you. So deliver us, Father, and we can pray and we can trust him. We can fast and put away our differences and trust in God to do this. Because I know a lot of us have said, we know the prophecies, we understand all these things. Some of us are coming and saying, okay, you know what? People come to me and say, David, I know, look, I see, you're right. We've been deceived on some of these things. And we need to put aside our differences. We do. And let's do it. But it says, thou shalt call, the Lord shall answer, and thou shalt cry, and he shall hear, say, here am I. If thou take away from the midst of thee the yoke, and the putting off forth of the finger, and speaking vanity, if thou draw out thy soul to the hungry, satisfy the afflicted soul, then shall thy light rise in obscurity, and thy darkness as the noonday. And the Lord shall guide thee continually, and satisfy thy soul in drought, make thy bones fat, and thou shalt be like a watered garden, and like a spring of water, whose waters fail not. And they shall be that are of thee, that shall build the old waste place. Thou shalt raise up the foundation of many generations. Thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of paths to dwell in. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath the delight, the holy of the Lord. Honorable shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor speaking thine own pleasure, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words. Then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high place of the earth. Feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. And I could go on now, a whole bunch of prophecies here off of this. God has a lot of stuff here that he wants us to hear and understand, and does not want us to miss out on. But it's not just about like keeping the day. You catching it? Like, look at this. Just watch the comparison of these words here, okay? It says right here, from doing thine own pleasure on my holy day. Now you go down here and you look at this, and what does it say? Behold, in the day of your fast, you find pleasure. Which day is this? It's the day of your fast. Take some time. Put aside your pleasures. And not just that, of course, it's talking about the Day of Atonement. I understand that. But God is calling us to understand that this Day of Atonement is a day to call people free. It's a day of liberty. And not just that, you know why it's a day of liberty? Because if you actually think about the Sabbaths, the annual Sabbaths every 7 years, there would be what is called the Jubilee. And the Jubilee starts on the day of the fast. It's the day of the fast that the Jubilee would start on, the Day of Atonement. You can read this in Leviticus 25. I'm not making this up. I'll go there right now. Leviticus 25. Okay, this is the day of your fast. But it says, thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7. The space of 7 Sabbaths of years shall be 49 years. And thou shalt cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month, in the Day of Atonement. Remember when the Pope came? I could go over that whole thing. 49 years and the Jubilee and everything like that. It all connects. Come out of for my people. God wants to let his people free. And it's a time of freedom. It's all connected. I've shared some things that connect these things. You can go watch some of my older videos and other videos. I got a whole bunch of different stuff in them all. Because when I share these things, it's different every time. I know that there's a lot of things that are the same, but it's different every time. There's always something else that's different. And God has like a bunch of different stuff that he wants to show you. I might have shared on the King of the North before. You might go see 4 videos on the King of the North, and you'll see it different every single time. There's something different. There's a whole ton of different stuff in every one. And I'm not sharing everything again and again and again, because you can go back and you can see those. They're still relevant videos. But the point being is that this all connects to September 24th, 2015. And I could go over it and how it connects. But these things with regards to setting aside, what is the Jubilee about? What is this Sabbath about? What is the Sabbath more fully about? Look at my video on the Sabbath more fully and see. But the Sabbath more fully involves feeding the hungry. It involves helping the widow. It involves opening your door to the homeless. That's what it means. And that's what we got to do as God's people, especially in this time right now, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be needing a place. They need to get out of the cities, and they realize the call, come out of my people. And they haven't been faithful, and they're repenting, and God is going to use you, some of you, to actually open the door to do these things. And God is going to use some of us, and God is just he's going to open doors for you if you're in the city. So fear not, put your trust in him, and give everything to God, and just trust in him, and he will do these things. But anyways, I'm going to leave it at this point. I know people are going to have questions, or they're going to be like worried and other things like that. Do not put worry into this, but put faith in God and serve everybody that you can. Give Bible studies to your brothers. Your brothers and sisters need Bible studies. How many of them need to hear these things? And if you have differences, sit down and come together with them. I'm sitting down with a whole bunch of people who are into different things like flat earth. I mean, I'm open to hearing what you have to say about your flat earth and stuff like that. I'm not against you personally. And I have people that are sitting down with me right now. We're going to make a video together with a flat earther, me and another flat earther. And we're going to prove whether or not there are southern flights that can fly across the bottom of the thing. And we're going to call people, we're going to call the airports, and we're going to prove these things once and for all, because we have patience with one another, and we want to put differences aside. And I want differences aside between us all of us, so that we can actually come together as God's people and just like stop being tossed to and from with every wind of doctrine. If David's deceived, he needs to see it. If the others are deceived, or there's somebody lying in a lot of videos right now, which I believe there are, then we need to see it. We can't just believe everything that we hear because it sounds like, there's a conspiracy there or whatever. We have to test things. We have to prove things. And we have to try things. And we have to test our own theories, not just testing the globe, but testing the flat earth. We want to see, does this fit? Some of you saw my recent video on the moon and stuff like that. Mess brother is willing to sit down with me and go over this plane thing with me. But of course, he's still doing videos on it. But God help him and God be with him. I'm not against him. And he knows that. He knows I'm all for him 100%. And, he said, my house is yours. And, whenever you come down there or whatever, and it's the same way here. We are God's children, and we need to understand that God is going to lead us in all truth if we're sincere. So anyways, these are just some things that I'm saying. I'm not against anybody here. I know some people took some of my videos personally and stuff like that. It's not against you, man. Come sit down with me and talk with me. Get to know me. Don't be afraid. Don't be like sitting back saying, oh, he heard it already and I don't need to tell him, or nothing like that. Sit down with me, get to know me. Even if I heard it already, I want to know you. I want to know who you are, and I want to talk with you, and I want to be family to you. So anyways, this is just some things that we need to do as God's brothers and sisters. We need to learn to be all for one another, and not against each other, even if we have differences, because that's how the Spirit works. The Spirit guides into all truth. And how can the Spirit guide into all truth if we don't have long suffering? Because the long suffering is the fruit of the Spirit. How can it guide in all truth if I'm not willing to sit down with my brother and go for hear all he has to say? And I don't care if you want to insult me and tell me how stupid I am, because I'm not going to nothing shall offend me. There's no offense, defense, there's no strife. That's the works of the flesh. And if I have that, then we're not getting anywhere. But if I have the Spirit, which is long suffering, I can let you insult me all day long and I have great peace, nothing shall offend me, then the Spirit of God is going to be able to work through us. And we need to have that Spirit between us all, which, we have to learn what it is. Some of us, I know that there's a lot of spots and a lot of misses and a lot of misunderstandings that we all have, but God willing, and so even my words, like, I know some people have taken it like I'm harsh, but the reality is that, my words can be pretty straight when I'm typing 100 messages on YouTube and stuff like that. And I'm sometimes like, God, help me. I have to pray as I'm going through these things, but sometimes people take them the wrong way. It's not against you. It's not personal. I do believe that there are some people that are not right in this community. And sometimes, I think that they're charlatans. I think that they're just in it for money. And it's not that I just think it. I mean, I know they're lying. I see their lies. And so sometimes I call them out. Not all of them. Some are sincere, some are honest. But anyways, point being is that, I have to be careful with how fast I speak my words. And so for that, if I have offended anybody personally, I want to apologize to you. And I want you to know that I'm not against you personally. And I want to come together. Let's put aside our differences. This woman has a time. She needs appointed time of humility. And we all need to humble ourselves. We need to wash one another's feet. We need to have communion together. We need to just be all for one another. And so I hope that you're hearing me, and some of you are, but God be with you and lead you in all truth. And I'm all for you. Anyways, many of you know already, but let's just close out here with a prayer. And if anybody would like to add anything, because I know I don't want to go on forever today, but if anybody would like to add anything, I feel like you can share some things with us. Okay, guys, so let's close our eyes. Dearest Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for being with us today. We thank you for your graciousness towards us. And I pray, Father, your Spirit would be in us, in each one of us, so we would have your long suffering and your gentleness and your peace and your goodness and love and mercy towards one another. And even though, Father, there was people that did things to Jesus on the cross, he said, forgive them, Father, they don't know what they do. He never said, I'm hurt. You never said, I'm offended. You never said, you did this to me. I did all these good things for you. What's wrong with you? No, he was all for them, and he was not here for himself. He was here to serve. And I pray that each one of us can have that heart in each one of our hearts, that you would give us the spirit of service, that we would all be saved truly to serve others. And I pray these things all in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys. So I missed all the comments. I love the harsh truth. Yeah. Speak the word with love, right? The word of God will convict. Exactly. Yeah. I drove over the house here. Anybody wants to comment or anything like that, you know what? The microphone is open for anybody who would like to say anything before we go. Yeah. You're still hear a word behind me saying this is the way walk in it, right? Well, it's all quiet, guys. So I'm gonna leave you guys at this. I'm just looking here. Let me see if there's messages in the comments here. 66 AD 2015. Yeah. Say exactly. It's a sign to God's people. right? Like when you see the sign, there was a call to get out of cities in 2015. I believe that was the call, and that was God's sign at the end of the world, that he wants his people to get out of cities because they're going to implement this agenda 2030, the United Nations and stuff, and they want to make it so that it's impossible for us to buy and sell. They want to bring in all this stuff, but God gives time. Like the Romans back off for a bit, so there's a little bit of time as God gives to get out of the city. Very similar to what happened in 67 AD. There was a little bit of time, and it looked like, it was okay to go back to the city at times. But if we look in the cities right now, as God's people, flee out of the cities. I mean, come on, it's just wickedness. I know I had a friend that just went down to Toronto just recently, and he said, "Man, we can't even walk down the streets without feeling like, like somebody's going to come and stab us or something like that." Like, it's crazy in the cities right now. And that's Toronto. There used to be, I remember there's 40 murders a year or something like that. It was like no killings or nothing like that. But once these cities start to break down, people are going to go broke. There's no money and stuff. They're going to start, like they're going to fight for their food, and they're going to do the things that happened in ancient Jerusalem, which is they would kill their babies and eat them. That's what it says in the book of Deuteronomy, like to the point where they would kill their own people. And it's going to be cannibalism. It's going to be crazy stuff going on. Anyway, yeah, Brother Paul, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, solid blessings to all, and have a good message there, Brother David.
Praise God.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, going digital cash, and I'd say to the most of the world right now, I mean, when it happens, most of them will probably really believe it's a good thing. And there's a fellow I work with that has no credit cards. He don't have a cell phone or anything. So it's going to hit him really bad when it go to digital, because he don't have a credit card or anything. But I agree. We have to get that message out. And that's what I tell people when I start telling them about the cashless society. And I said, look, in order to be able to, for the government to control the buying and selling, the Bible says that you won't be able to buy or sell unless you receive the mark of the beast. I said, if we still had cash, we could take all of our cash out and bury it and use it later on when the trouble comes. But if you have digital, all they do is control, alt, delete you. You could have $10 million in the bank.
Are we cutting out? What happened there? Am I lost, or is he? Hello? Can you guys hear me? Yeah, you can hear me? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
we
I
can
lost.
hear you.
I lost Paul.
Yeah, Paul lost.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He had a
Okay.
good point though before he fell
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, I was interested in the area, and then all of a sudden I was like, what happened? But anyway, yeah, no, this is what's going on. I mean, like if we can't realize it's already here, like we got to realize it's here now. Like look at Australia right now. If they're cutting off cash in the banks, there's Nigeria, I think, is another country that is doing the same thing. That they made it so you couldn't withdraw more than $20 or something, so that people would start to go cashless and stuff like that. And then they burnt all the bank machines and did all kinds of stuff. It was crazy what happened down there. But yeah, there's just people are going to go crazy. People are going to go crazy because this is what we're living in, the world we're living in right now. Aussie is bad. Yeah, no, they're a little bit ahead of us in Canada. I mean, we're not far behind though. We got Justin Trudeau here, and he's quite the dictator. Anyway, yeah, there's Paul joining again. I guess he got cut off. But yeah, no, like what we've got here. I mean, of course, President Biden is nothing much different. How he's the president is beyond me. But anyway, he is the president of the United States. And yeah, it's crazy stuff that's happening all around. Anyway, Vern, go ahead, brother.
I don't know if you saw what happened with Biden and his family there this week, but I think things are going to go a little sideways here now that we saw 3 of the major media network covering the fact this week. They can't hide it anymore. The fact that him and 9 of his family members are complicit with some sort of source of cash come out of communist China, and they can't denied anymore when it's now hitting the main media. So it'll be interesting to see what effect this has. Does it just prepare the way for them to bring in the opposition without any resistance and find out that it goes the sideways no matter which leader there is? Because the politics of it doesn't matter. It's what's going on behind the scenes. But the cash thing, one thing you pointed out, I put it in the chat earlier. RBC main branch in Edmonton, Alberta, they're just recently, they removed all their tellers and stuff. And so I went and asked bank manager here, he's the regional manager and a friend of mine. I asked him, what's with that? He said, well, they're doing it all in the major centers because he said there just isn't enough work to keep the people working in there busy because there's just not the demand. But he said in a branch like ours out here, he says a large number of people are still using cash. So he said, we'll continue to have tellers. So it's not that there isn't cash in a lot of these cities. There's still bank machines kicking out for cash. In fact, our local machines, they hadn't done it before. It used to always be 20s, but now you can get 20s, 50s, 100s, everything out of the cash machine. So it's a matter of time till the transition's finished. But it's like Paul was bringing out there. If you haven't got any cash when that hits, you're stopped in your tracks today, whereas the cashless society will probably expand a number of months beyond when there isn't cash available from the banks, simply because as long as it's in circulation, there will be a strong resistance to them devaluing what's in your hand. But they will find a way. I think, part of this interest rate thing they've done here recently has to do with encouraging people to put their money back in the bank where they can make something on it. Whereas in the past, it didn't matter whether it was in there or not at 0.5%. Who cared?
Yeah.
So, they're doing all these different things from their plans to gather it in. But, if we've got our face to Christ, we've got nothing to fear. One thing I always, and David, I feel this way. I always encourage people with this message to recognize the parallels in Ezekiel and Daniel to the King of the North on a spiritual side. But we also got to remember, we get up to almost the last couple of verses in Daniel 11, and it follows a perfect parallel in historicism also, which is a major foundation of our Seventh-day Adventist understanding of things. So I encourage people not to take the oppositionary view that so many do. And then I recognize what you say too, David. We've talked about this before, is that, people turn a blind eye to spiritually what's taking on because all they see is the historical record and they don't recognize the parallelism of prophetic nature embedded in the scriptures. And so I encourage people to make sure they understand both sides before they take a position on any side, because if all you are is opposition, you do so without understanding. But it's, it's so clear what took place in 2015 to those of us that paid attention. Because I know you and I didn't know each other back then, yet I was telling people, hey, what's happening in September coming up this year is going to have a major effect on the outcome of prophecy. But people didn't want to listen to it because they're stuck on, Uriah Smith says this, or such another says this. But if we go back in the history of the church, both those views were held within the church and they were held in synergy. They weren't held as opposition. It was when Uriah wouldn't listen to the prophet on some things that he got rebuffed for it, not that there wasn't others that held an opposing position.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'd like to talk to you a bit more about that. I think it'd be good to sit down with it because I do know that Uriah Smith did teach that the King of the North was France, right? And
Turkey, yeah.
Yeah, Turkey. But he does teach that king in Daniel 11:36-39 is France, right? Which is the papacy, right? Ellen White says that, the king that does according to his will.
Yeah.
In verse 36. Well, he teaches that to be France. And then the goddess of reason is the god that's mentioned as the god there, but I believe that's a trinity. And then, of course, the King of the North in verse 40 is Turkey, which I believe to be still the papacy, the same king that does according to his will. And I do think that it's a distraction because the Bible says this, okay? It says, Jesus said that there's going to be a sign of the end of the world. And it's spoken of by Daniel the prophet. And that has to do with the abomination to make it desolate, which is the 10 horns getting power over the kings of the earth. So this is like the sign of the end. And Ellen White spoke about this in, I think it's 5 Testimonies 451, where she said that when they get power over the state, this is like a sign that God's people, like as happened in Judea in 70 AD. And so this sign is what is spoken of by Daniel the prophet. But then with regards to Turkey, a lot of people are saying, well, that's the abomination to make it desolate. That's the sign. So is God going to have 2 signs that coming out of her, my people, 2 signs, one sign that already happened, then we're waiting for another one where Turkey comes to come into Jerusalem. And that's what a lot of people are waiting for, is they're waiting for this final point of Turkey to come into Judea. And this is just before the time of trouble. And so they're waiting, but the sign already happened. And the sign had to do with coming out of the cities, and that Babylon fell. And Babylon's the king of the north rather than Turkey. And so they missed the sign. And now they're just saying, that's not the sign. That's not the sign. With regard to what happened, we still got to wait for Turkey to come to Jerusalem. And so now we're going to be waiting for that. And really, they're missing the loud cry, which is just before the time of trouble.
Well,
And
I think where a lot of people err with it, and it's the thing that concerns me with it is I've seen brethren that are agreed on every point take an opposing view on this. And we had a really good discussion here in one of the Norwegian rooms here a few months ago about the matter.
right.
The gentleman that I agree with, and he accepts both views as I do, in the sense one is strictly history, not a sign, but strictly history.
Yeah.
Could be looked at as a sign, but it's strictly history because it didn't call to a spiritual account such as the real account does. Like the book of Ezekiel is very clearly history. And yet if you read the parallels of prophecy, and it also points to the end, right? To the fulfillment of all things. And if we accepted that and follow the history of it, then we will be looking for these signs in the end with a lot more background. Like 66 AD gave us a lot of insight to 2015 because it was a literal event, which was prophecy to their age. You know, Christ gave them a prophecy what would happen. But for us, upon who the ends of the earth come, it obviously wasn't the taking of Rome, sacking of Jerusalem by Rome that was important to us today. And yet, as you said, one thing I didn't know where you were coming with, so maybe you can clarify. When you talked about them going back, the records that I've read state that when the Christians fled in 66, that none of them returned to the city. Most of them went to the city of Plah, but the majority, nobody returned. It was the fact that, which sadly today, by the way, David, I've seen quite a few of our Adventist fellows return to the cities when 25, 30 years ago, when there was a real big push. We left the city back in 95. Many of them encouraged me to return. My current employer today is an Adventist. He encouraged me to return, buy a property with them. And, you know, the city's doing well. Why not make some money while things are okay and get out when you can? But I said, no, I once took the message and got out of the city. I'm staying out of the city. And we're glad we did. We've, you know, now we saw what COVID was. We had total freedom out here. Nobody bothered us at all. And yet we were able to function. But I totally concur with you. When people buff aside the idea that there's something in Daniel for us today, I fully believe, just as we see many teach, fully believe that Satan is going to maintain a facade. And I don't know if you saw a couple of weeks ago where they announced that they've moved 5 red heifers from the U.S. to Jerusalem. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and so now they're getting prepared for what I believe will be a real event. Is it the event you and I are supposed to watch for? Absolutely not. We've been told that Christ will not set his foot there again, that the temple is of no relevance. Yeah. But Satan has created a facade upon which he will deceive many. A man of sin will stand up with great power. All these will happen. But are those the signs we're watching for? No, we are warned not to follow those things, but to watch for these other signs. So I find it really tough when brethren that, as I said, are agreed on the major points. Who is God? And, you know, what are we to do in life? What is it's about relationship and everything. But they come at odds because of disagreements over things they won't study. Like you said, we need to sit down and study them. But most of them stay in opposition is because of a refusal to sit down and study. And to sit down and study together means somebody has to be willing to change their view or find a synergy of views without compromise.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you do know, though, that they do teach that the that Turkey's going to come again, right? That there's still something to come. That's the sign. That's their sign. They
do. And this is what I was getting at. They do. And that he'll set up between the seas, which, you know, is exactly what happened with Napoleon. Historically, that's exactly what Napoleon did. Set his tents up, set his, you know, and then exactly the results happened. What was he trying to do? He's trying to control the coin. Did he control the coin? Yes, he controlled the coin. All those things happened historically. They're expecting that exact same thing to happen again. But that's where I agree with you. You and I came to this conclusion, apart from even knowing each other, that 2015 was important. You know, that's when we left the church. That's when all these things started to happen, just in a steady stream. 2015, that happened. And in the spring of 2016, we left the church. And yet I told the church ahead of time, it's time to get out, folks. You know, you're sitting here languishing in the cities thinking you've got something. It's time to get out. And now here we are in 2023. And they're trying to get out and they can't afford to. Their place in the city isn't as worth as much as the lands in the country now. And it used to be the exact flip side by, you know, 400 or 500%. And now here in Terrace, where we, you know, over in this region here, south of us, if the people in Terrace want to get out of the city, their house is worth 600,000, but the place in the country is worth 600,000 now. It used to be 600 in the city and 100 out here. When we bought out here, it was a fraction of what it is now. And so now the propensity to get out, Ellen White said they would linger too long, just, like we saw with the woman looking back. If Lot hadn't have lingered, we're told his wife wouldn't have been lost.
Oh yeah.
He was lost under his lingering influence.
Yeah,
right?
that's what it is.
And so on this one, yeah, I bring it up only, again, not to be contentious and not to deny what you're saying. I really enjoyed your presentation, but that people would recognize it's not about taking sides. It's not about finding fault. It's about getting down to what's really this all. Can we establish the historicity of this church by the history of Daniel? Absolutely, we can, firmly. But that doesn't mean that we turn on blinders from then on, because if you look at the picture, I know his brother's name just isn't coming to my mind, back at the beginning of the Pioneer Church, he professed and told what would happen to Turkey, named the very day in August that it would happen. And people just mocked him. But when it happened, every church in North America was looking this direction. Like, how did he know that? Well, because it was prophetically spoken of and accurate. But now, as you said, some are looking for that very event to happen again. I say if it happens again, it's not the sign. It's merely efforts being made on the dark side, because, of course, we know that if it was Turkey, it would be Erdogan, who's, by the way, right now up for re-election this month, whether he makes it or not. But he's been saying for 22 years since his inauguration that he was going to take Israel again. He's made it very clear. If he were to do it, would that mean we negate the prophetic side that is important to us as a people? Not at all. It's not.
Well, that would mean there's two signs of the end.
Well, no, look at the parallel sign. The Christians took the sign to get out in 66, right?
Yeah.
Those around them did not. The difference is what we make the sign to be. The event stayed the same. The event didn't change. And I get what you mean. If we're looking at it as a sign of the close of time, then there's
sign of the end. Yeah, that's what Matthew calls it, right?
Which is different from a sign of history. 66 AD happened as a fact, is what I'm saying. When Turkey was taken down, it happened as a fact, but that doesn't negate the prophetic thing for the end of time, which is what you're pointing at. Just as 66 AD was 2015 to us. You see what I mean? It's two different principles. One is a sign to that current generation and to the generation. This is what present truth is about. We can read right on by present truth and not be condemned for it if it's not the day, an hour for our time. But we're in the end of time. And this, I believe, 2015, is, you and I well know, when the Pope stood up where he ought not stand, a very clear message to all that were watching. We all got it in our diverse corners. We saw it.
Yeah. I don't know, bro. I'm going to say this. Okay. This is how I say it, is that I don't believe you can harmonize the two. And I know that people come against me and they know for a fact that they can't harmonize what I'm saying with regards to the King of the North and all of the Daniel stuff. Because I say, like, when you get to verse 36 of Daniel 11, Uriah Smith goes this way. He's going this way. I mean, I've read the book numerous times. I'm very familiar with all his writings. But the point being is that is completely contrary to what Ellen White said. And you can't have them both. You can't say, okay, this is going to be the goddess of reason, and then say this is going to be the Trinity at the same time. You can't say that this is going to be France and then it's going to be the papacy at the same time, because it's the King of the North. And Babylon is the King of the North, which is the papacy. So therefore, this king does according to his will. And then the King of the South, which is France, is going to come at the King of the North, come at him. You can't come at France. France can't come at France. So that's why they know that the King of the North can't be the papacy, because they would be all, it just make a mess. So it's like they know it can't work. And I think but again, I'm willing to sit down and study it with you, and not an issue there or nothing like that. But I think you'll find that it's kind of like a distraction, that these people are saying that there's going to be, Turkey's going to come and put their place in Jerusalem, and then there's going to be a call, come out over my people. That's the sign. Flee out of Judea, flee out of Babylon, whatever it is, so that the time of trouble is going to follow right after the loud cry, right? But
well, and some part of it is moot too, David, as you and I have to acknowledge. 2015's come and gone, and those that didn't listen, it's too late for them to take full advantage of the warning. If they get out, they'll get out without the shirt on their back, because you know as well as I do, in 2015, the people that left, we got to take our goods and stuff with us. We didn't have to leave anything behind. We weren't fleeing in that sense because we took the early warning. Those that wait till the hour when it comes down and the Sunday laws lay down, they won't get out of the city. They'll be caught just like those were in the congregation of 70. That to me, I think, is the far more important important note, just as it is here locally, those that haven't gotten out of the city now will do so at great loss to get out. They're going to have to take a loss to get out.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's get harder. Like Ellen White said about the houses, the houses that would weigh them down and stuff like that. Like she talks about those things.
The mortgages would bind them in chains. They would not be able to leave. And it's similar. Like one of the things that for the longest time I thought, well, just being in the country, she's promised us prosperity, that we'd eat like kings and queens. But then you go find where she made that statement the first time in its context, and she says in contrast to those that are in the city. And then she talks about them. So it's not that we'll have a bounty in the city. I'm a retired commercial farmer, and I know my wife and I both agree to make a living out here in the country and feed ourselves the way the world and the climate is today. We'll be hard pressed as what we're considered by others experts in the field. We made our living at it. We both agree it'll be penury. It would not be easy just to feed ourselves 12 months of the year in a climate where crops don't grow for eight out of those 12. You have to be very, very fluent and very knowledgeable at what you're doing. And so, my real point in encouraging David always is that look at it and know it for yourself. Because by the way, and that's something we can talk about later, Uriah Smith did change his view on some of those points when he was corrected. And so,
no, I know. Even Uriah Smith went over it with Willie White, and they had over 2,000 corrections in that book. So it's not like the infallible word of God.
Absolutely. Yet she still said it's the only book besides 4 of her own that she said should be found in every home. So that should be a balance for us too.
Yeah. Otherwise she would. I'm not but I don't agree with everything in it.
I don't either. I don't either. Just like you and I will probably. Can we learn to disagree as Christians and still be brethren pushing towards the mark? This is Satan's greatest weapon in Adventism today. I see many people that believe in one true God falling off the fence, falling off because they take opposition against brothers over some minor point that they get hung up on, and then their nasty character comes out. And then they reveal it's not Christ motivating. They're just a knowledgeable person in history, but they haven't got Christ in the heart. And that's what really it comes down to. Can we preach the doctrine and still love the person, or because they reject what we preach, do we turn hatred towards them as persons? That's what's destroying the work right now, because there are plenty of people out there in the one true God movement to finish this work, but sadly they're broken into factions.
Yeah, exactly.
Over all kinds of little details.
Exactly. Yeah, no, we got to be able to sit down with each other though and study those things, and that's what I say too.
Amen.
I understand that there's I had one guy oppose me. He was the preacher who a lot of people were listening to and stuff, and he's basically saying that people are going to burn in hell and they're going to be lost if they believe the King of the North is the papacy. And lots of people watch this guy. He was associated with PHM Ministries, right? So they're not the people get pretty serious about this stuff, as if they're not reasonable to the point where you can actually sit down and actually communicate and have a study and say, okay, is this going to fit an investigation? Are we going to be able to investigate this? And it's going to just add up to what does thus saith the Lord? Does it agree? So anyways,
well, sadly, they're adding to the law and they don't realize it, because the testing law of salvation has nothing to do with any of these doctrines. Mm-hmm. Is Christ the Son of God? That is the gospel. If Christ is not the Son of God, no Savior's been sent. Until they get past that hump, the rest is all window dressing. Because, I remember when I was accused, when this was all happening with us, of denying the divinity of Christ and confusing the people, because they said I had a one-horse hobby where all I ever talked about was the Father and the Son. Well, if I told them I wouldn't apologize for that, because the whole Bible, if it isn't about the Father and the Son, it's window dressing. It's of no value. If it doesn't bring us to a relationship with Christ and the God that he brings us to, it's nothing but information. It's no different than any religion on the street, a place to gather and have discussion. Might as well go to the golf course, right? It's not of any benefit to us, but to be able to go over these things, study these things, grow beyond Uriah Smith and the pioneers. The pioneers did a wonderful and a great thing, and I'll defend what they said, because she said it's to be rewritten and republished. Doesn't mean they were without error, greater light. She says we have many things to unlearn and many things to forsake.
Many things to unlearn.
Many things. And if the prophet can say that, I've been reading through, and I encourage everybody here, I've been reading through the history again on Ellen White. I just found another one of those books in my library that my wife brought to me a few weeks ago that I didn't even know was here. It was left by the prior owner. Got reading through it. It's an old book on the history of Ellen White and her work. And I'm being blessed by it again as I see her humanity, watching, reading through the wrestling she was having with diet and the issues that she said the Lord just struggled to get through to her. She fought and she fought. When we can see her humanity and recognize that prophets are humans like us, then we take what the Lord did show them much more seriously, because when she had victory, she had total victory, but she wrestled just like many of us do with all of these things. So once again, David, I always enjoy the effort you putting together, and it's a constant reminder to me, which I'm always reminding my fellows of. If you don't study daily and look in every corner of the book, dig through it constantly, you can't even comprehend what some of us are talking about, because I've been teaching Ezekiel here recently. We're in chapter 20 now. We're about 35 weeks into it. Some chapters are 2 or 3 weeks of study. I've had to change my view teaching this on 3 or 4 items as I've done my research through scripture, and other things all of a sudden come to my memory, and I realized, you know what? I've been influenced by the bias of other teachers on that point. That's not biblical. And when you find a clear "thus saith the Lord" and support from Spirit of Prophecy, and as you do, I always stick to the Bible. Spirit of Prophecy to me is something to show us that we're on the path. It's to push us to the greater light, but it's certainly not the source of our doctrine. So to me, no, I encourage everybody, continue to search, be a David in this case. Look, spend more time, take more time. I'm really trying to downsize my commercial work and spend more time being able to just sit here in the hours of the day and in the backyard and just contemplating what the Lord has done. I spent this last week, David. I was out in the yard one day and it just hit me like a wall. I was thinking about, well, what would if God was said to Ezekiel, go and deliver this message. He went out to the city of Tel Aviv and he sat down amongst his brethren, and for 7 days he was silent. And he says, and then God came to me again and told me, look, their blood will be in your hands. Deliver the message. If that's what Ezekiel went through, then I asked myself this question. Well, if the angels are intermediate messengers, which is what we are, supposed to take the gospel through the Spirit of God to the world, let the Spirit speak to them. If that's what we are, would not one of those angels told us about a change in the Sabbath, for instance? Would not one of those angels told us we're to call God a Trinity and that Christ is only a metaphor? Certainly their blood would have been upon their hands.
Right.
If these were truths that God wanted us to understand, would he have not sent an angel to some prophet in the past? And just when we dwell upon these things and think what's relevant, then we'll understand more clearly what the controversy is about. Because if it doesn't address the controversy, there's probably no light in it. God has put us all here to, before the heavens and the earth and the other worlds, show that indeed a man can, a free choice, follow God.
Amen. Yeah, praise God, brother. I really appreciate your words and thank you. And you know what? This is what we got to do, though. We do have to be long suffering, not impatient or not like, oh, I can't hear this brother anymore or whatever. Give the brother time. Let him explain his points and break it down, though. But study it yourself. Don't just go into studying. You don't know what you're talking about and stuff. You want to study it yourself on your own as well. And then just say, I'll consider your points and look them over, and then go and search and see if the scriptures say what they say. I know it's easy for us just to say, because I've been doing the lunar Sabbath thing, or not the lunar Sabbath, but the moon thing that I just did with the light of the moon. And I was like, why don't you guys go consider the points that I'm making with regards to the moon? The moon is a reflection. It's the lesser light. It's the reflection of the greater light. And I said, that's what the Bible teaches. Just like, and then somebody put a message out, and I did a response on the moon, and I shared how the moon goes in between the sun and the earth. And I said, go check those things. Show me where I'm wrong on those things. And, not a lot of people are willing to do the research, at least to check those things, but they're telling me I'm wrong. they'll give me the you're wrong kind of thing. But it's like,
well, the error they make is they go looking for fellows to agree with them. Yeah. We're off on the wrong track when we approach the Word of God, either to edify our current belief, or to, if we go to anyone to edify our current belief and take sides, you have instant division. Automatically, the result of that has to be division. You will never find unity and truth by going to one group or another group and looking to support it. You got to go to the source. You got to eat the manna for yourself. And having done so, the Spirit of God is faithful. He will convict you of the truth, and he will also show you how you can possibly share it with your brothers by truth, and recognizing that not all are going to believe the truth. That is the nature of the controversy. There are those that are going to always align themselves. My biggest prayer is that I let not my own character and approach be the stumbling stone.
Exactly. Yeah. That's important. Definitely. Yep. Yep. I've had to consider myself a few times, and sometimes it's like, like, have I spoken too quick? Have I spoken too fast? I gotta, and I gotta pray. I gotta go to people sometimes, and just, yeah.
Yeah, learning to, it's a hard thing, especially if you've got lots on your mind. I know I do, and I know you do, David. When you get lots of on your mind and you've thought about something a lot, it's real easy to fall into listening to speak rather than listening to hear.
Yeah.
And I know when I fall into listening to speak and I got something I want to say, then all of a sudden I find myself going, man, I should have been listening closer. I heard what he said, but I didn't get it. And now you've got to be humble enough to go back to the brother or sister that was speaking and say, I was so busy waiting to answer your question. Could you repeat that point you were making there? I didn't quite get it. And that requires that we fight against self, because self does not like to be humbled. Self does not like to say, hey, I had the wrong approach here.
Yeah,
but, if we can do that, if we can go to brothers and sisters and say, hey, maybe I was wrong there. Can we sit down and go over this again? That right there sets the tone for reconciliation. Even if you don't come to a united conclusion, it sets the potential for it. But as long as you remain on the other side, it's them and it's us. I said to you guys before, when I walked out of the church in 2016, I wanted nothing to do with the clarion call that came from one side of the Sabbath class to the pastor was at the back. Hey, pastor, come and join us on our side. Right?
I'm trying to move it. Sorry, guys.